My name is Dawn Hopke. I am the Associate Director of Admission here at Flint Hill and have the pleasure of working with families in the lower school that are considering lower school for their children, along with my colleague here, Rico Reed. Tonight, Rico will be helping me out. He's going to be monitoring that chat. So I know that we're all very familiar with certainly this virtual format at this point in time. We're just going to ask that, everyone stay muted, but we want you to participate. We want you to be involved. And at Flint Hill, we value curiosity. So please don't hesitate to put your questions in that chat, and we're going to try to get those answered for you at various points in the program, either in that chat box or we're going to have this great parent panel towards the end of our session together. So just to give you a little lay of the land for this evening, we're going to start off with a presentation by our head of school, Patrick McConnon, and then Megan Jar is going to share all about the lower school program with you. As I mentioned, we're going to have some parents in there for that chat time, just to give you that perspective. And of course, we're happy that you're here. So just give me a minute to get Patrick's presentation up here, and then I'll turn it right over to him.
Thanks so much, Dawn. As you're getting that all pulled up, I'll at least share a little bit of an overview on me and my transition here. For what it's worth, like all of you lower school prospective families, I was in your seat a year ago. I am new to Flint Hill as our new head of school, but I'm also a lower school parent. I've got a son, Jack, who's in our kindergarten, and I've got a daughter, Charlotte, who is in our 4th grade. And it's been a really amazing transition over the course of the last few months and coming out here for this job. But I understand what it is to look at a school from that lower school perspective, thinking about the foundations of learning for our kids and finding that right fit. And so I'm there, and now I'm on the other side of it with you all. And I can tell you that it's been a really smooth transition, at least for our family. And I'm hopeful for the same for you all as we get going along here too. So let me at least give you a little bit of perspective. Folks, I previously to being head of school here at Flint Hill, I was the head of school at a place in Southern California, St. John's Episcopal School, which is early childhood through 8th grade. And I really loved the opportunity to come out here for this Flint Hill job because it's, number one, an incredible community, but being a part of that JK through 12 experience is something really magical, especially in independent schools, and especially at ones that value that lower school experience as being the foundational building place for our students. And so I've worked at pre-K through 12 schools in the past, and I've seen that experience and seen those kids grow and mature and stretch themselves. And I'm excited about that here at Flint Hill. Some of the things that brought me over here to Flint Hill in particular, and I hope that they're appealing to you as families, and it's part of my presentation as Dawn's bringing it up. If not, we can bring it. It's totally fine. The mission and the core values of this school. I've worked at 3 other independent schools as well as in higher ed. And there are a lot of places that talk the talk. And Flint Hill, in my expertise, really walks the walk, meaning this is a school that says who it is, who lives by those core values, and we really talk about it at age and developmentally appropriate ways with our students as well. And so those core values of being respect and value all equally, lead and support with compassion, act with integrity, imagine what's possible, and blaze the trail. One of the things that I really love about our core values, and as you're searching out schools for your kids, see what they say their core values are. Ours are action-oriented. It's not just 4 words up on a wall. It's not just these abstract ideas. It is an expectation. It is an opportunity for our kids to really push themselves to be the best versions of themselves. And so I want to try to tackle each of those individually for you and say, here's what that looks like in our lower school, fully recognizing that Megan and some of the other folks who are going to share tonight will also be able to give their perspectives on those experiences too. So respect and value all equally. What does that look like at a lower school? At a lower school, that means how we come into the classroom every single day. I, Megan, and others are out there at morning drop-off, giving fist bumps and handshakes and high fives to every student as they come in. It's that feeling of being welcome, a sense of belonging, a sense of an opportunity to learn from others who maybe are different from you with different family backgrounds or ethnicities or religious beliefs or personal beliefs, but that we, in a very safe and supportive place, can talk about those things and to share with one another. And sharing for 5 and 6 year olds is sometimes not easy, but you learn those skills now. So that way later, when you're 15, 16, or 35 and 45, that we can talk about those difficult points for disagreement and do so in a really respectful way. So I love the way we welcome our students. I love the intentionality with which we talk about our different backgrounds and experiences and ask our kids to really lead into those questions, which is super helpful. Speaking of leading and supporting with compassion, the thoughtfulness with which our lower school program talks about empathy, compassion, using one's voice, apologizing for one's own actions, and doing it through this responsive classroom and Project Zero approach really links together how we manage our students in their own social emotional development, as well as how they're interacting with one another. Lower school, these ages, it can be bumpy. There's going to be days where your kid is best friends with somebody one day, and then the other day they're feeling big feelings that aren't always so great. And so how we help those kids work with one another and to manage and use their words for those emotions is, I think, really helpful, because it certainly gets harder as they get older now. So building those skills of empathy, of compassion, and supporting one another is a really important piece for us. That third core value, the act with integrity. Each morning, our students in the lower school say the Husky Promise, which is their promise to themselves and to one another that they're going to work to be their best selves that day. That's more than just say, false words in the air or just reciting something. It means something to our students. And so when a student falls short of that, we're able to have really healthy conversations, sometimes peer to peer, or sometimes adult with child, or oftentimes including the family, to say, hey, we fell short on that one here. It's not punitive, but maybe what could we do to make sure that this doesn't happen again? And to take that in a really nice age and developmentally appropriate way to help them be their best selves, to fulfill that Husky Promise. And that's part of acting with integrity. We actually extend that along into the middle school, into the upper school as well. And in the upper school, all of our students sign a board that is adhering to the core values of the school, essentially the bigger kid version of that Husky Promise. And literally, you're putting your name to it. And so we build those foundations now at those younger ages, so that way when they are signing that board in front of their classmates, teachers, and peers, they're saying, yeah, we believe in this, and we hold them to that in some really healthy ways. So I love that foundational point of integrity, of honesty, that begins here in the lower school too. Imagine what's possible. Imagination is one of the greatest gifts that we have in our students and in our teachers. And so the flexibility to take a classroom in a morning meeting or a share or a morning greeting from our kids and say, oh, this is what's happening in the world today. Or, oh, your family had this great experience last night, and expound on the curiosity that these kids are naturally bringing to the classroom every day is amazing. One of my favorite things that I see out of our JK classes is they do field trips often in junior kindergarten out to parks and playgrounds and other places. And the imaginative play that we see out of these students in a forest with sticks and rocks and mud and getting dirty, that's the good stuff. And that play is academic. That is where we're learning problem solving skills, mathematical skills, sorting, complex ideas that are being set out in that early stages. So when we think about imagine what's possible, how do we open up our classrooms and the world around us to get our kids experiencing those things and think for themselves, hey, what could we do within this? And I think it speaks to our core approach as a school that is very innovative and always forward thinking for the ways in which we can best support our student learners. Last one, blaze the trail. This is, I think, something that is so core to who we are as Huskies, all on the same team, pulling together. But the idea that for us at Flint Hill, among many other great independent schools in this area, we're not your cookie cutter prep school. We are not a place that is going to say, we've been doing it this way for X amount of years, and we're really proud, and here's our college list, and let's all pat ourselves on the back. Flint Hill is a place that is always going to continue to innovate in the world of brain-based research, what works best for kids, as well as how can we prepare them for the unknown challenges, jobs, and opportunities of tomorrow. So I've been incredibly impressed as a new person coming to this campus. It's been one of the main things that I've loved is supporting a really innovative faculty that is always balancing the appropriate nature of tradition in a classroom setting, but what's next? How can we do that better? And how can we continue to support our kids in an increasingly complex and challenging world? So that blazing of a trail happens on a macro level as a school, as well as a micro level with our students, with student generated activities, clubs, organizations, opportunities where we've got 3, 4, 5 kids saying, and I'll share this, in the lower school right now, there's a bunch of kids who love Pokemon. So one of our teachers is doing a Pokemon club at lunch. And how do we connect those kids together? And it happens to be our school counselor. And so getting kids to talk over a game is really, really healthy collaborative work. So we're never just going to sit back and say, this is it. We're always going to be moving and evolving because that's what the world is going to expect out of our students as they grow along. So that's my big piece here. Those core values, respect and value all equally, lead and support with compassion, act with integrity, imagine what's possible, blaze the trail. Those are not just posters on the wall. They are the lifeblood of what we do. And I think that you'll see the proof is in the pudding with our students and our teachers in the ways that they interact with one another. And that all starts really intentionally here in the lower school. So I hope you enjoy this experience here tonight and keep engaging with the school. And I'm going to turn it over to Megan Dar, who's going to speak a little bit more about our lower school at large.
Thank you so much, Patrick. It's hard act to follow, but I will try. My name is Megan Dar. I am the interim assistant director here in the lower school. I'm actually joining you from my office. I have 2 children and a dog and a husband at home. So this is my attempt to stay focused and on track at an hour that is not usually my strong suit. I'm more of a 7 a.m. kind of girl. So I'm so delighted to have all of you here. This is my 10th year at the school and my 20th year as an educator, and there is no better place to be than the lower school. So without further ado, I'm going to try my best to present my screen. I am going to focus tonight on really trying to capture the joy that we all feel every day here in the lower school. So as you can see from this first opening slide, our students arrive every day full of energy, and really capturing the joyful learning is our goal every day here at the lower school. We really have, over the years, begun to emphasize this portrait of the Flint Hill student. And this is really actionables around the core values that Patrick just spoke about. This is something that is not an outcome. It's really the way that we lead and learn every day at Flint Hill. Our goals for our students are to be self-directed learners, problem solvers, leaders, effective communicators, and ethical citizens. And this translates in various ways. So one of my objectives for tonight is for you to see how all of these things are emphasized throughout the experience of your lower schooler, whether they're in JK or all the way up through 6th grade. How do we do all of this? Well, we start by building a solid relationship with your child. So from the moment your child arrives every day, they are known for way more than just their name and their grade. They're known for who they are, for their likes and dislikes, for what makes them unique, for what makes them special. We value difference and we welcome all. Community building is an essential aspect of our school. This is our kindergarten class, one of the 2 kindergartens having a picnic the first week of school. Our social emotional learning focus, especially early on as we build community, really allows your child, whether they're in kindergarten all the way through 6th grade, to feel socially secure. And as Patrick said, we use brain science, and there is evidence to support that giving your child a secure environment allows them to access deeper, more meaningful learning experiences and challenge. This is really rooted, as Patrick mentioned, we're a responsive classroom-based school. And as he said, there are definitely schools that we are aware of who use responsive classroom, but it's more of a label. For us, it's really an actionable. It's part of our culture and our foundation. So the aspects listed are part of our daily life in the lower school for grades JK through 4 and somewhat translate in grades 5 and 6, which I'll talk about in a moment. This is an example of a morning meeting. Morning meeting is an essential component of the responsive classroom where the student every morning, part of their routine is meeting as a class. They do a sharing activity, a greeting where they practice making eye contact. They say the Husky Promise, which Patrick mentioned, and they really practice making good choices before the day begins. As Patrick mentioned, the Husky Promise is more than just words. I thought this would be a helpful way to demonstrate how students apply the Husky Promise. So part of the responsive classroom approach asks our students to come up with a class contract for their class community. These are some examples I pulled from various grade levels of how students brainstorm to come up with language that they all subscribe to throughout the year. And you'll see, as Patrick mentioned, just like in the upper school, they sign this and this hangs in their class community. And in some cases, it even travels with them to special classes. 5th and 6th grade has its own unique approach that aligns well with the transition to our middle school years. They use developmental designs, and that approach is similar to responsive classroom in that it is a responsive, advocacy-oriented program where students and teachers learn different strategies and routines to help them manage daily routines and also logical consequences. There's also a lot of modeling going on and investment in the student's part. So this is a CPR activity. The circle of power and respect is similar to the morning meeting, but there's a little bit more active participation on the student end. So here's an example of something that the 6th grade worked on, and this hangs in their classroom. You'll notice that the students had to brainstorm how they can be their best. So it's not the teacher saying, this is what I expect. It's the students brainstorming and coming up with positive language to reinforce good choices so we can all work together and build a community of learners. Working collaboratively is another trait that helps in the first 6 weeks to solidify routines. Kindergarten actually recently wrote a definition that they asked me to read tonight to you about how they work together in partners. They said that a great partnership looks and sounds like helping each other, taking turns, listening to each other, and solving problems when they disagree. They also said that a good partnership sounds like good try, good game. I like to play with you. Thank you for playing with me. So again, these are all student-driven, student response-oriented ways that the teacher stimulates a dialogue around what positive learning should look like. And then this is modeled and mentored. This is an example of a 4th grade and kindergarten buddy program. And this is a lasting relationship and it's beneficial mutually. So the 4th grader will take an active role in planning activities for their buddy, and they'll get to know them on a deeper level. And week to week, maybe they'll write them a letter, maybe they'll meet and read a book together, maybe they'll do a class-based activity or project together. But these are some relationships that really last forever. Again, our social emotional curriculum is very intentional. So we have a wellness program that's weekly where the counseling team and teachers actively practice routines and modeling techniques. We call it a tool belt that the students wear, and they pick out strategies for things like conflict resolution, mindfulness to calm down, and also discussions around growth mindset. We really want to encourage students to take those meaningful risks and not be afraid of failure. And that's especially relevant as students progress through the lower school, and we do offer greater challenge and extension. So how does this all fit together? This is an example of a 6th grade daily schedule, and you'll notice a couple of things that are developmentally intentional. There's blocks of time to allow for more rich experiential opportunities and also time to build in for collaboration. So you'll notice there's a science lab that's an hour and a half. That's where the students will actually go to the lab and participate from start to finish in a scientific method-oriented process. And as Patrick mentioned, we also use Project Zero routines, which I'll talk about in a second. All of these same activities are actually apparent throughout the kindergarten day, but in a developmentally guided way. So they have similar learning blocks, but they're developmentally staggered so that the students also have movement opportunities and most importantly, time to play and explore. We really believe that play is the true work of children, and that's really where they derive purpose and passion for their learning. For those of you with applicants in second, third, and even fourth grade, this is an example of how their schedule works out. And you'll notice they have similar specials and blocked off times for all of the same opportunities for language, math, and other specials, as well as this lower school morning meeting. And that's a hallmark of our lower school. It's sort of the bedrock where we all meet together in the theater once a week for a school assembly. It's all student driven, and our sixth grade has actually taken the lead this year with that. So how does this look like in terms of learning? We talk a lot at Flint Hill about process versus product. And the best way I could describe that is to show it to you. So tonight, my hope is to show you some student learning. We try at Flint Hill to really make the learning visible. And that's through different tools, which I'll talk more about as we go. This is an example of a math lesson. So with our math program, we use different curriculum depending on the grade level, but the focus is still the same. We're looking at having children, grades JK all the way through sixth, have to demonstrate their thinking in a variety of ways, through concrete, manipulative-based demonstration, also through pictures or other manipulatives, drawing a picture, writing a story, a written explanation. And abstract thinking is where you attach numbers, and that's really where the algorithm comes in. What I hope to do tonight is to show you also how we demonstrate, how students document their thinking. That's a big part of our culture, both for you as a family to have a window into your child's learning, but also for students to really develop a culture of thinking amongst each other. So I'm going to play this video now. This is a student explaining their thinking about how to tell if a number is prime or composite.
Okay, this is a prime number. This is 5. It's a prime because it can only make 2 ways. It can only make it like this, the 5 by 1, or a 1 by 5. Alright, now I'm going to take one away, and this is a composite, because it can make more than 2 ways. Here, let me show you an example. It can make this way, this way, this way, and let's see.
Another opportunity for students is through today's number. This is a process, and you can actually see how it builds year to year. So in kindergarten, students are building numbers right now with different abstract items, pencils, counting blocks, counting different tools in their engineering center. Then as students mature, this is a second grader's today's number. They're having to break apart numbers. You see 20 plus 5. You see the 10 rod and the ones cubes, tally marks. So really, this is encouraging students to think abstractly about numbers, and this helps as they mature. So this is a 5th grader's example where they have to use the standard algorithm strategy, but then 2 other ways to share what they learn. So again, we're not looking at, do they memorize all their facts and can they recall them in a certain amount of time? Well, that is always a value. That's not what we place emphasis on. What we're really looking at is how students think and how they demonstrate their thinking and understanding. I'll talk a little bit more about how we measure that in a second. Reading is the same way. So we're really looking at fostering and inspiring. So in kindergarten, which is pictured on the left, students are still learning now. What are the different ways to read a book? Here you'll see students are practicing tracking the words. They may not be able to read or decode all the words, but they're practicing using that tracking finger. They're also looking at the pictures to try to comprehend the story that way. On the right, we have a second grader. She's practicing building stamina. These are 2 ways that we're trying to foster independence as readers, and she'll set a stamina goal for herself week to week and build upon it. During reading time, we also have something called word work. For us, this was spelling when we were younger. It has a totally different spin now. We have different sorting opportunities. So each week, your child, grades 1, 2, and in some cases 3, gets a word list. And the word list is designed to be sorted. So it's sorted by different features, phonemic features, and in some cases by sight words with exceptions. And then the student has different interactive activities each week that they complete. Sometimes they'll sort the words in a notebook. Sometimes they'll do something digitally on their iPad. And of course, we always have pencil and paper. Reading also looks like play. So now, as I mentioned, kindergarten with their emerging literacy skills is focusing on ways to read. And one of the main ways they've learned to read is to reenact the story. So this is a comprehension strategy, and they're using something called loose parts. So it's a play-based strategy, and it also is a way that they learn to write. So they'll map out a story using different manipulatives and tools. Again, the foundation of our work is play-based, but students will be challenged when they meet with their teacher to be able to demonstrate character, setting, plot, and all the story elements that you'll find in a well-crafted tale. This leads into writing workshops. So this is a picture of a JKer. We certainly have some traditional aspects still in our curriculum. Handwriting is something that we've definitely had a renewed focus on after having some digital learning over the last couple of years. One of the best things about our writing program is we have mentor text. So the teacher will read a story. Here the students in 3rd grade are listening to a book, and that will model some strategy that she then wants them to use with writing. Students also always are given a why. So at the beginning of the year, they brainstormed, what's the purpose of writing? This is really important because we want students to be intrinsically motivated to learn and not focus just on writing one way. As Patrick said, we want to instill curiosity, and the teachers are great at inspiring that just through discussion and, as Patrick said, allowing them to ask questions. Students are given different opportunities to write in different ways. So we recognize that not every student is going to be able to sit down and immediately put pen to paper. So this is an example of a story map where a child was able to answer these key questions and record themselves aloud through dictation. So if a parent clicks on the megaphone, they're actually able to listen to their child's story plan. This is an excellent tool as well for a reluctant writer because then they can hear themselves and begin to put pen to pad. Here's an example of how students learn to self-check. We really want, as I went back to that portrait, to have students be self-directed. So one of the reflection tools that they use as editors is they use a checklist. After they write, they'll go back and look for things like capitals, punctuation, vowel placement, since we do focus on that word study aspect. This is an example of a 1st grade writing sample from the end of last year. I thought it would be nice to share. This is a quick story that a 2nd grader wrote this fall. He was working on personal narrative. So each aspect of our writing curriculum has a different focus. They start with personal narrative in the fall because it allows the student to express themselves and talk about themselves from a personal perspective.
On a hot Friday in the forest on a hike, the people on the hike were Jake, Noah, Arthur, me, Miss Sharkey, and Miss Thomas. First, we went on the bus to get to the forest. When we got to the forest on a nature hike, on a scavenger hunt, we checked off everything on our list. We found so much nature. Last we got to the bus, talking to the person next to us. We came to this school talking about everything. We had so much fun looking at each other's lists. We had fun. It was a great day.
So this is a 6th grade example. And before, you noticed that the tool that we used was Seesaw. And that, if I could just go back, hold on one sec. Oh, I gotta go back. Sorry about that, 1 second. I just wanted to quickly make the point that Seesaw is a tool that we use. And Justin, the student who wrote this story so eloquently and read it so beautifully, he posted this on Seesaw as a demonstration of his learning. And one thing that we really strive for at Flint Hill is to make the learning visible. And that's not just for you at home, but also for each other. So students will also take turns sharing each other's work and self-reflecting together. This is an advanced example for 6th grade. So we're jumping ahead now so you can see the progression. Similar to 2nd grade, the teacher asks the student to write about themselves at the beginning of the year. And she really challenges them to assess themselves as a reader first before we do any formal assessments. To think about how they feel about reading really, as I said earlier, helps them better access where they're at as a learner so that they can maybe set some goals to be challenged as the year progresses. You notice that the teacher has some guiding questions at the top, and then she asks the student to write a nice paragraph. I'll show you later how we use rubrics to measure that student success. As Patrick mentioned, Project Zero is an opportunity where we use thinking routines in the classroom. This is one called Parts, Purposes, Complexities. On the right, this is the student's thinking journal. This is an essential component in the lower school. I believe this is an example from a 1st grader, and they were studying the parts, purposes, and complexities of the plant. The curriculum objective was for the student to be able to name the parts of the plant, but through the thinking routine, we were also able to get students to identify what the purpose of each part was. So beyond labeling, again, we're not just looking for them to meet the standard, we're really looking for them to extend beyond it. So students were challenged to then demonstrate through an experiment how the parts of the plant are impacted by sunlight. So you'll notice the student's thinking journal actually asks, how does sunlight help plants grow? Then the student has a hypothesis. Then they have a demonstration of their learning of the actual experiment and how the variable of light impacted. I love this because it really demonstrates how we ask students to think like scientists. And you'll see a couple examples of that now too. Here's a 6th grade example. So this is kind of gross, I realize, but the student actually took the time to document what the gum looked like before and what it looked after they chewed it. And then, thinking like a scientist, they made some qualitative observations. So this is a 6th grader's thinking journal. You notice that they also have some future questions. Why is it so sticky? How is gum made? Through using their 5 senses, the teacher here, Ms. Snell in the picture, is actually challenging the students to use their 5 senses in observational ways, reminding them that thinking like a scientist isn't always complicated. Social studies is another opportunity where students can use those comprehension strategies to tune into interesting words. Vocabulary is a big aspect of our reading program, and it translates nicely to science and social studies. This is a recent lesson I found, actually a student shared on Seesaw, where partners work together to read and research about the Jewish holidays we recently celebrated. They made some keywords on their whiteboard, used their iPad to pull research material, and then they created this diagram on Seesaw where they also recorded themselves reading the vocabulary in context and then extending upon it to explain what it meant in terms of the Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur holidays. These are 2nd graders, so in many respects, this is really higher level thinking, and this is the kind of ways that we want to stretch and challenge students beyond just reading a text or an article and repeating what was said. This leads into our next segment, which is really focused around experiences. As Patrick said, from field trips to the science lab to just being together and learning different strategies, students are always experiencing something in the lower school. Here's an example of a dry ice lab that 6th grade just participated in.
Okay.
Mom, I gotta have my face like really in my face. Look at my shadowy old. Yeah, girl. Oh, what happens if you touch it with your real hand?
I love that excitement and enthusiasm and the wonder when they're talking about it. Later on, then, students had to post videos and explain in their own words what happened and what they learned. Another way that we imagine what's possible is through dramatic play. This is one of my favorite things about our kindergarten and junior kindergarten classrooms. We just provide opportunities for role playing, and this is also a social emotional opportunity for students to learn to collaborate. The other day, I had the pleasure of joining them, and we talked through like who would play what role and how do we know that and how could we work that out together. And the students really took the lead. To my surprise, when I visited this kindergarten classroom yesterday, they were busy working on transforming their dramatic play kitchen space into something new. And the next thing I knew it had become KA's farmer's market. You'll notice a couple of things here that are key aspects they wanted me to share with you tonight. First of all, they have a menu, as they called it, with prices. They drew a picture of each fruit and vegetable that they have at their farm market, and they set the prices using this pan balance you see. They were able to articulate that if something weighs more and is lifted down heavier, then it should be priced higher because it means you're getting more. We also did the same thinking routine I mentioned earlier, and students naturally gravitated towards the cash register. So we talked about all the parts of the cash register, its purpose, and how people actually sometimes give us too much money and how we use the cash register to make up the difference. It was pretty fascinating to see how through play they came up with all of these different norms and things that we take for granted every day. A couple of kids also shared that we need a Square and an iPhone to be able to run credit cards. I don't think we're quite that advanced yet, but if you notice, they have an open and close sign in the back, and they even have a buy one, get one free going on now. So I wish you were there to check it out. Another thing I wanted to clearly distinguish tonight is how we use technology. We're certainly well known as an Apple Distinguished school. Many of our teachers are Apple Distinguished educators. But with the iPad comes a lot of responsibility for our students. We have a digital Husky promise that all our students comply with. And that means using the iPad not for consumption, but for learning and creativity. So here's an example where the iPad is just another manipulative being used in a math lesson. You'll notice the students are using magnifying glasses and bowls with different types of coins. And interestingly, here's the result. They're using the iPad, but they're using it to organize their thoughts, which I love because this is also an executive skill that a lot of children don't naturally come by. It has to be taught. The teacher has set it up for them, and their job is to fill in all the different attributes that they notice that distinguish each of the different coins. I love it because it also asks them to identify different ways that the coins are relevant. So thinking about not just what they're worth, but how can we identify them and distinguish them from each other. Fifth grade recently started studying ancient civilizations and the Neolithic era. They decided it would be great if every day when they walked down their hallway, they felt like they were in a cave. So they've begun making cave art. And this is a work in progress. It looks a little rough, I realize, but I thought it really captured the spirit of the kids' intention. And I love that the teachers are willing to take this risk. And really, they hadn't tried this in recent years, and they thought it would just be a fun way for the kids, not just to connect with the learning, but to feel like this is their hallway and they invested in it. As Patrick alluded to earlier, field trips are really at the heart of experiential education at Flint Hill. This is an example of a curriculum connection. So these students are actually over at Oakmar Park, right next door to our campus. They walked there to do some water testing with pH strips. The goal for the water testing is really to look at stormwater runoff, erosion, and other aspects. And this also impacts our Chesapeake Bay study, which the students will begin soon. They've begun to think about how erosion impacts our campus too, and soon they'll build a demonstration of erosion on a table in the classroom. This is our JK class. This is a recent field trip they took. As Patrick said, they've taken several already. They went to an EMT school where EMTs are trained, and they learned how different tools work. So here, I think students are getting different things measured. They also got to look at a human skeleton and learn about the bones and try a blood pressure machine and other devices. It was really fun. And as you can see, they're just so excited to be there. Specials are an obvious component of experiential education, and we have a wide range. Music is obviously a fun time for students. Sorry. 1 second. Music is always fun. And then we have PE, which 5th and 6th grade girls really enjoy, as do the boys. They're split in 5th and 6th grade. So they travel to the middle school fields and the upper school campus. They also use our facility. We have a full-size gym on our campus for our JK through 4 PE. This is our library time. These are our JK kids again. Every class comes to library once a week. And then we have fun in our innovation lab. Quickly, I just want to cover how we measure growth with our students. Your student will use self-assessment tools for fluency, so they'll make their own goals that way. They'll also set individual learning goals across the year. The teacher will brainstorm these with the child. They'll also set goals for their behavior and their social emotional goals. Teachers conference with students weekly on various subject matter, whether it's a piece of writing, a math assessment. Teachers use rubrics to give them feedback throughout the process. So while a 2nd grade teacher might meet with a student and give them feedback directly on their work, as students grow at Flint Hill, beginning in 4th grade and more explicitly in 5th and 6th, they'll use these rubrics to give them direct feedback around the learning strands and curriculum goals. Students also self-reflect using their own feedback rubrics, and these are something that are encouraged, just like reflection over their social emotional growth. This is a math rubric just to show you it's an error analysis. So each student takes a look at each problem, and to meet is different than to approach or exceed. So as I said earlier, the student's growth is measured on whether they can explain their thinking in multiple ways and also reach their own conclusions. This is an example. We have a differentiated math in 5th and 6th. We have flexible grouping. So this is an example of a 6th grade accelerated math class. You'll notice that this student has detailed response to the question about how and why can 2 fractions be equivalent. They actually use a demonstration with a picture as well as in words. At Flint Hill, we're really striving for our students to be leaders and problem solvers. So in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, there's a bevy of leadership opportunities. We actually encourage our older students to be safety walkers for our youngest Huskies. And our 6th grade class is sort of like our senior class. So they get to celebrate their graduation year and design and paint barn numbers to go posted that they can see every day when they come in. Of course, one of our hallmarks is having meaningful service to others and extending beyond our lower school community. Pre-COVID, we made a point to travel out and have field trips be service-oriented, and this is something that is a goal long-term. This is a kindergarten class who traveled to a senior living facility, and the kindergartners actually planned activities to do with the senior living guests. So different centers were taking place, reading, painting, singing, instruments. It was a really great event. And of course, family engagement. That's really at the heart of our lower school. Connections with parents are as important and meaningful in building a partnership to support your child. And so different opportunities embedded throughout the year, both on the lower school campus and throughout school-wide. I know we have homecoming coming up, and that is something that also includes our youngest Huskies, as well as our lower school day of play, which I know you'll hear a lot about from the admission team. Again, at Flint Hill, we play for the long game. So this is a picture. Actually, recently we had a wonderful kickoff to the year, the all-school gathering, and we had our youngest JK Huskies walk in with a lifer. That's a student who has been here since junior kindergarten or kindergarten. And really the goal for our lifers and for all our students is to be lifelong learners. I'm going to stop sharing now, and I just want to thank you all for all your patience with me tonight.
All right, Megan, thank you. Thank you so much. Excellent job. Thank you, Patrick. I'm happy to announce or to share that we're joined by a couple of current Flint Hill parents, Colleen and Derek Blank, Brian Kropp and Elaine Turville, and Christy and Derek Kung. I would like for you to introduce yourselves and speak a little bit about your association with Flint Hill Schools. We'll start with Colleen and Derek Blank.
Good evening. Thanks so much for having us. My name is Derek Blank. Our family is fortunate to have 3 kids in the lower school. We have Anderson in 4th grade, Brinkley in 2nd grade, and our youngest, Beckett, in kindergarten. This is our 3rd year as part of the Flint Hill community. It's off to a great start, and I think one of the really unique features that we really enjoy about Flint Hill is all 3 of our kids kind of have their own strengths and their own learning abilities, and Flint Hill does such a great job across the board, kind of enhancing all of those strengths while still really opening up our kids' eyes to different areas that they probably never even considered that they would enjoy or be exposed to. So having a great experience so far.
Thank you. Okay, we have yeah.
Do you want me to go? I'm happy to go next. But
Yes.
You've only got one. You've only got one of us also here. So I'm Elaine Turville. I am parents to 3 kids also at Flint Hill. One is up in the upper school, Jack, who is an 11th grader and has been there since 5th grade. I have Charlie, who is a 6th grader and who was one of the people who actually did one of those gum experiments. It was pretty gross when you looked at all the chewed gum. And then I have a 4th grader, Wes, who's actually in class with Anderson this year. Charlie this is Charlie's full 2nd year, and Wes started midway through last year. He sort of was able to pop in midway through. I mean, Flint Hill's been amazing for us as a family. The 3 kids are very different from each other and from other children. And Flint Hill has been super welcoming to all of them and able to meet all of their different learning needs and really where they are. My little guy, Wes, is super extroverted and was able to pop into that class, and people knew him, and he felt immediately accepted and, felt a deep sense of belonging with that class that he was able to merge into it midway through the year. And Charlie, who's our 6th grader in the lower school, is super excited to be sort of like, they're the top of the school at this point in time and have a bit more autonomy. But as an 11th grader, she's like learning how to go through different things. And I think the support staff and all of the teachers really wrap the children so that when they show up in school that day, they can sometimes shake off some of the things that they have at home and feel like that they're in there, and sometimes I think Charlie thinks that maybe her real family for the day. So it's just been an amazing experience for us.
My turn. I'm Christy Kong, also here alone. Derek is taking care of the kids. I have a 4th grader, Declan, and a kindergartner, Annika. Declan has been at Flint Hill since 2nd grade, and he is in class with Wes and Anderson. And Annika just started this year. And my 2 kids are also quite different from each other. What I love a lot of things about Flint Hill, but what I really loved for Declan is that he is, I think, probably your stereotypical firstborn. He was a perfectionist. He's smart. Wasn't so much even afraid of failure. Was afraid to not be perfect all the time. He was very shy. He lacked confidence in 1st grade. And coming over to Flint Hill, he just really blossomed. He is not shy anymore. I think if you ask Anderson and Wes, they wouldn't have even, mentioned those things about Declan at all. He's articulate. He loves learning. He loves school. Both kids are excited to leave in the morning. They tell me about their day when they get home. I heard from each kid independently today when I picked Declan up from practice. One of the first things he said was, "I got my kindergarten buddy." I came home, Annika was like, "I got my 4th grade buddy." So they're really loving it. They're having a lot of fun, and it's just a very welcoming community all around. Like, the parents are great, the kids are great, and it does feel like a community. So homecoming next weekend, was able to do that for the first time last year. The kids had fun, but I had fun too. So I think all around we've had a wonderful experience in not just on the academic side, but also the emotional and social support that we've gotten through the Flint Hill experience. So happy to answer questions.
Awesome. Thank you, parents. So our parents will serve as panelists. So you can either ask questions by deactivating your mute button and asking that question right here, or you can use the chat. But please take advantage of the fact that we have 3 very excited parents here who are willing to answer questions. Fire away.
Well, Rico, I don't know if this has just been such a spectacular presentation that all the questions are answered. I'm sure that, here is a question. Yay, Rico, I'll let you take those.
All right. Thanks, parents. Since some of you did come in grades other than JK or K, were you already independent school families or were you from public schools?
I can start. So we did private school for preschool, and then Declan went to public school, kindergarten, and first grade. So he was in first grade when the pandemic hit in 2020, but we were already actually looking at moving him to private school before March of 2020, just because we weren't thrilled with the first grade experience he was getting.
And our family transitioned from another private school. It was a smaller private school. The larger Flint Hill community really appealed to us. When we came on campus, had a chance to talk to the teachers. I think just accessibility of the teachers was a huge perk for our family. And it's been really cool since getting into the school, just seeing that interaction between the upper school and the lower school students. Just like was mentioned with the buddies today, that was the talk of our household after school. Just even our 4th grader does the safety walkers program and just really takes that very seriously and loves helping out the younger JK kindergarten students. So the transition for us was really positive and smooth for all grades.
And I'm going to apologize for the dogs rampantly running through my house and barking. I apologize for that if you can hear them. So we all transitioned from public schools, Jack from Loudoun County and the 2 little kids from Fairfax County Haycock School. And Haycock was a great school and the kids really had a great time there. But what we really were missing was this sort of much more accessible ability to get deep in science and math and innovation and technology that we just were never going to be able to get anywhere except for Flint Hill. And so that was really important to us was my daughter loves the Makers Lab. And I think if she could stay in there with Mrs. Magner, she would probably move in. So for us, that was, one of the reasons was giving her that ability to have those bigger chunks of time to really lean in and figure things out.
Awesome. I love the Makers Lab as well. Can you describe, I'm sorry, let's go with the other one. What is homework like for a 3rd grade student and up? For 3rd grade and up, what's homework like, or as we refer to it, home learning?
So I can go first. For my 4th grader, it is kind of math worksheets. They're more like word problem math worksheets. There's 20 minutes of reading whatever book you want or other literature you want. And then there's vocabulary. So that's typically what he would get. There might be, some special assignment here and there, but that's pretty much on the day-to-day.
And just to add to that, it's typically for our 4th grader, typically like Monday through Thursday evenings. So it's kind of nice to have a bit of a break on the weekends. And I'd say it's very much at your own pace. So if there's our kids do swimming, if there's a big night of swim practice and some family event, you can kind of do it the night before, do it the night after, and it's pretty flexible with that, which is something our family really appreciates.
Yeah, and then for our sixth grader, it's probably a little bit more, not so much more in terms of time, but there's always the reading. I mean, reading is one of the core components every single day, which is also then nice on the holidays. I can be like, oh, you still have to read and do some ST math. But reading, and then they have some more in-depth projects. And in sixth grade, they have a little bit more accountability on themselves to bring home sort of, if they're working through a project, they need to think about how they're going to structure their different work. But it's never meant to be super intense and long. My daughter's favorite is the math program, and I'm forgetting the name of it right now. Can someone prompt me? The weekly math question that goes to the test.
Noetic.
Noetic. Yes, sorry. So she actually gets her super excited, and she does the Noetic piece with my husband. It's like their time to, work through and think about math in a super nerdy way that gets her excited about it. So she doesn't mind spending a little extra time doing it because it's optional, but it's really important and interesting for her.
Excellent. Can you describe the interaction between classes in the same grade level?
They're combined for some of their specials. I know that. So I think they have PE together. They have recess together. It's not isolated to just one class. I know that there's a lot of back and forth because I hear about kids that my son's not in class with.
Okay, we're going to skip down to, is there an advanced academics program in the lower grades?
I think it's differentiated. So I think, Megan, you can probably speak to this too, but I think kids are put in, different groups, not like the kids know that they are, but they, with, children that have like abilities, the math in particular, if a student is, ahead, they might get extra problems or different types of problems. But that's been my experience. I think it's differentiated depending on the child.
Yeah, and in fifth grade, Charlie was able to move to qualify, and I really don't know the full process, so I can't even speak to it. The amazing math team can tell you, because there's a very distinct process. Charlie went into advanced math in fifth grade and then is now in pre-algebra, which was really one of the things we really wanted, and she wanted, because I'm telling you, this girl wants to build the first flying car. So that's one of her things, or be a kindergarten teacher at Flint Hill, living in Mrs. Magner's room. So one of those, she'll do one.
I think she'll be able to do both. Don Hopke, we have a question. Is there an option to do JK twice before kindergarten, or is it just once and then kindergarten?
That's a great question. Our typical progression is to go from junior kindergarten to kindergarten. And certainly, I think that's a conversation that I would be very happy to have with you, Emily, regarding your unique situation and your child, and see what is the best sort of that educational journey for your family.
Great. Megan, can you talk just a little bit about our advanced math program, or advanced academic program?
Sure. And I want to be careful to distinguish that we don't label advanced, apart from our math program that Elaine eloquently described. We're very careful not to label whole classes in the lower grades as advanced or ahead, because we're really looking at each learner as an individual. And I don't know about you, but I have 2 children at home, and I think I think Christy, you said this earlier. As you know, kids are all very different, and they're all going to have different strengths that they bring and different things that they're working towards. And we see that too in a classroom. So we may have your child work with a group based on their strength, or we may have them work on a group because they're setting a goal and they want to work with other students who also have that learning goal, or with other students who are going to inspire something from within them. And so that is a gift that you get from an independent school like ours. Our teachers, as I said earlier, really know your child, and not just what their abilities are, but how they learn. So do they learn kinesthetically? Do they learn auditorily? Are they visual and kinesthetic? And that is something that the teacher clues in on very quickly over the course of the first 6 to 10 weeks of school. And part of our parent partnership is sharing that with you and seeing, is that what you see with your child at home? It could be different, it could be the same, but that communication and that partnership helps us inform you about how we're individualizing it for your child. We're also encouraging your child to self-advocate. So reflect and share. Is this hard? Is this easy? Do you need more? Do you need less? I know I've had the pleasure of having some of the children of the parents in this meet now. And for some of them, they would self-advocate and say, I would like more ST math at night. And, or I'm busy tonight. I have an activity. Can I have a break? And that's true of home learning, but that's also true in the classroom setting too. We're really trying to meet your child at that precipice of their development where they're just pushed enough that they're challenged, but we're not pushing them to a point of pressure where they're fearful of their learning or they're stressed by their learning. They should be engrossed and enthusiastic and passionate about their experience.
Excellent. Gretchen Barlow raised her hand. You have a question?
Yes, thank you. I was wanting to know a little bit more about preparations for a current sixth grader going into middle school, and what sort of things that Flint Hill does to kind of prepare them.
I think I'm the only one. I think I have the oldest child, and it's my when Jack was going from sixth grade onward, there was no middle school. So I think I'm in a bit of a conundrum on answering it. He was at Flint Hill when Flint Hill still had eighth grade in the lower school, and then went directly into the high school during the COVID transition. But there was a lot of care and focused on making sure those children were ready to go back to school in the new building. He's a pretty introverted kid. He absolutely loved returning and being able to go to the high school directly. So I've never had a child go from the lower school into the middle school per se. But one of the things that the kids have been doing this year as sixth graders has been more of this focus on self-reliance and autonomy in a way where they are setting things up for themselves. They're setting up learning. They're setting up their own mechanisms for tracking work and making sure they are able to think through how to break down work into structure and a timeline for them to be able to do it. They move around a bit more in the school is what I hear from Charlie. They have a study skills instructor who's come in a few times to actually help give them coaching on real world stuff around how to organize and send emails, how to look through their emails, how to think about work, their work in a very different way. So the way it was explained to me and the way Charlie is looking at it, the whole year is this journey towards the end state of departing the lower school and being able to go into the middle school in a new and different learning environment. And then they'll be able to go from there. That's my probably, as I'm experiencing it, point of view versus knowledgeable point of view.
Elaine, you did an excellent job. I think one of the most valuable aspects is the opportunity to have different teachers. So to hear from different voices, to experience different learning styles. What you'll see is an increase in the collaboration, the increase in, the home learning, not to the level where it's overwhelming, but it will take on a different look when they transition to middle school. But I think you did a great job in articulating what Charlie's experience is like. Thank you. We also have another question in the chat. Can you please share the types of opportunities or activities involving families?
I think we could start with homecoming since it's next weekend, but it's basically a whole weekend of activities. There's a bonfire and different things for the kids to do on Friday night next week. And then I know my daughter's doing some dance thing on Saturday, and there's the varsity football game. There's also all the other varsity sports all through the weekend. So we get the whole agenda for what's going on there. And then there's different like activities for the kids, like bubbles and games and all sorts of things set up, and there's food. We basically are going to spend our entire Saturday there next week. And then there are other things throughout the year. So we did like a back to school social for each class, depending on the grade level. There for the upcoming kindergartners, there were several playground meet and greets before they started in the fall. I know there's like parent coffees throughout the school year. It's after I start work, so I've never been to one, but they're there. I'm probably missing some because I do get a lot of the emails, but there are a lot of opportunities for families to participate and for all of us to get to know each other as a Flint Hill community.
There's the Inclusion Book Club, which is my favorite. Miles Henderson puts it together, and it's across all the schools. And so it brings parents together across them. There's a set of books that get picked at the beginning of the year. We read them, we meet, have coffee, and talk through them. And, they're sometimes tough to attend because they are at like 8:30 on certain mornings. But I have found that, if I schedule them, I'm able to go every once in a while. And the conversation is so amazing. And the faculty and staff that attend are awesome and really get you to think about a lot of different topics and subjects. So I love that book club.
Excellent. We have to get Christy to attend one of our coffees. We got to figure it out.
We're going to have a 7 a.m. coffee, me and Christy.
There you go.
And then we have a parents association that is amazing, that you will all have a chance to join and participate in their socials and so many other activities that you will have a chance to schedule and add to your calendar and come to campus. And some of those events are off campus as well. There's a question about how many kids per class. We will never have a class exceed 18 students, but average class size is about 13 to 14 students, and that's JK through 12. Most of our families live throughout the region, throughout the greater Washington metropolitan area. We have a large contingency that live in the Fairfax County area, but we have kids from Loudoun County, Ashburn, Leesburg. We have kids from Alexandria, Arlington. We have kids who are coming to us from Prince George's County, our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. We also have had kids from Southern Maryland as well. We have transportation throughout the region. So it is really, really giving us a chance to truly share perspectives in this true sense of diversity. Do we have any additional questions? If not, I would like for you to join me in giving our panelists a nice round of applause. A nice round of applause for our parent panelists. Excellent job. And now I think I'm turning it over to our Director of Admission, Jennifer Webb, if she's here.
I'm going to take over the job.
There you go. All right.
You get me again. It's Dawn. I'm back. We really are looking forward to partnering with you through this admission process. We do absolutely look at this as the start of a really strong parent-school partnership. We are, we want to have really authentic conversations with you about Flint Hill and your family, and definitely along the way, you're going to receive a lot of invitations to events and things like October 22nd. We have our day of play. I hope that you'll explore that a little bit. It's going to be a great morning of building and thinking and having a lot of fun for families. So take a look on our website at that. In addition, we do, there is a process. Our application for admission is open. You can find out all the information certainly on our website, but Rico and I are also here to support you through that process. The application does involve several steps, such as the parent interview. We do ask for transcripts from the current school. We are going to ask for recommendations from the current teacher. We are going to have student visit times because we want your children to feel what a day in the life is like at Flint Hill and get to know us as well. We know that they are an important part of, that family decision-making process too. Our application cycle, like I said, that application's open now. Applications are due with all those materials by the middle of January, with admission decisions being released that first Friday in March 3rd this year. Actually next year. So there is definitely time to get started in that process and to spend time asking more questions. Come take a tour, come see us in person. Certainly, like I said, you can find Rico and I online, and you'll get a follow-up email from us with our contact information should you have any additional questions. Were there any other questions before we close out for this evening? No, if not, thank you all so much, as Megan has mentioned in the chat, for your engagement, for your time, and we enjoyed sharing Flint Hill School with you.